Hello and welcome to the Southern Star's Election 2020 podcast. My name is Siobhan Cronin and I'm the news editor of the Southern Star. In this episode, Emma Connolly meets up with the IFA's Harold Kingston to find out what's on West Cork farmers' election wish lists, and reporter Jackie Keogh is on the streets of Bantry chatting to voters. But first, we invited independent Councillor Alan Coleman into our Star studio to tell us how he is finding the canvass for election 2020, given that he has such a huge area to cover with his team and just a few weeks to do it. Welcome to the Star studio.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Coleman. Tell us, when did you decide to throw your hat in the ring for this?
Well, I had a very good outcome of the local elections last May, so that kind of put it in my head. And after Christmas, when the announcement was made, I was contacted by a number of people and I said, I'll give it a go. I certainly won't die wondering anyway.
Yeah.
So it's I had a good run the last time, and I would hope this time to build on that, build on the local election results of last May, which I got in the eastern end of the constituency, and build on the vote that I got in 2016.
Right. And what would be the three main issues that you'd be campaigning on now down here?
Well, I think the big national issues, are the affordability of houses for regular couples who are just finding that they're not able to get on the housing ladder. I think that's a big issue. The state takes a huge chunk of the income of any house. So that's one big issue for me. I think another is childcare. I think we need to take early years childcare seriously. It shouldn't be a second mortgage for a family, and I think it's really holding back a lot of families, and I think that's a big issue for me. And obviously, being a farmer myself, agriculture and rural services are very important to this constituency and to me personally as well.
Right. And has the pensions issue come up now in the last few days? It's getting a lot of attention.
This week it's just come up from absolutely nowhere. Personally, it mightn't be a popular thing to say, but I think it is a good idea over a period of time to have the pension age raised. But you need to make a lot of other changes as well. You can't have people just having their terms of employment ending at 65 and moving the pension on to 67. Obviously there was no joined up thinking whatsoever went into what is, I think, in the long term is a reasonable idea, but very, very poorly implemented, and obviously got no oversight when it was going through Dáil Éireann, and nobody saw the pitfalls that it created for people, and I think that has to be addressed.
And do you think people who want to maybe retire at 65, I know a lot of people don't, but the people who do and felt when they were starting out that that's when they would be packing it in.
Yes.
What do you think should happen between there and 67 or 68?
Well, at the moment you have to go on job seekers, which just doesn't seem to make sense if you want to retire. It is, yeah, and I think there should be a graduated pension for those who want to leave early, and that you go on to your full pension at the pension age, which would be rising to 67, and in over the next 10-15 years might even rise another bit as life expectancy goes on. But I think just changing that one aspect without adjusting all the other things and the contracts that the people are in is very unfair on people. Right.
Now, you've always been very active on social media, and I know you did a very slick video called A Day in the Life, I think, before the last general election. So things have changed a lot, the environment has changed a lot since then, I think, on social media. So how are you finding it these days? Do you find it a bit harsher than it was back then? A
bit harsher, yes. Social. Well, I don't use Twitter, but I'm more a Facebook guy. But I think that, the last time we did a video, we were probably forced out of the trap, so it was a bit different. Everybody's doing it now. So I just noticed from the last local election, maybe a little less could be more in terms of social media. So I've eased back a little bit, but I think it's still a very important platform, but I think it's one that politicians should use maybe more sparingly. Well, I'm using it a little more sparingly, and people want to get your message, but they don't want overkill.
But how do you find it on the receiving end?
The receiving end
have got a lot more aggressive, I think.
They've got more aggressive. Now, I understand that people on Twitter are even more aggressive, so I don't just use Twitter, but I on Facebook, you get some negative comment, but, it's a mix. It's not much different than being at the doorstep. Maybe a little worse, but...
it's par for the course when you're seasoned canvasser, maybe.
It is, yeah, but people put up nice comments as well. But I think people would get sick of you if you're putting too much up all the time, you know. So that's my take on it at the moment, anyway.
Right. Yeah. Now, there's quite a few high-profile contenders in this constituency. We have 2 sitting TDs, we have a senator, we have a county mayor. Do you think there's room for an independent?
Well,
we have a sitting independent.
We have a sitting independent at the moment, yes. But
future,
I think there is. Look, it's a different election than 16. There are more. Fianna Fáil running 2, Fine Gael last time had 2 TDs, this time they're running with no TD. We've a sitting independent this time, we didn't have the last time, so there's a lot of change, and I'd be hoping that if I can build on the vote I got, as I said earlier, that I would be able to attract transfers. Who knows, it's up to the public if they want me as their TD or not, but I'm certainly available, willing to do the job, and I think I'd give it a good shot if the public were of a mood to elect me.
Right. Now, if elected, and if Fianna Fáil are the biggest party, and I think the polls are tilting that way slightly at the moment, how would you feel about doing any deals with the party that you had a pretty public falling out with?
Well,
in 2016?
I'm in politics a while now, and you have to, what happens yesterday, you have to put it behind you and move on. I'm one of the leaders in the independent group in the council at the moment, and we have a deal with Fianna Fáil in terms of the mayoralty and other things in the council for 5 years. After the next election, there'll be 2 main blocks, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, whichever one of them is in a position to form a government, and if they need independent votes, I'm not going to sit on the fence. I'm going to do the best deal I can possibly get for Cork South West, and will not be shy to support a government, whichever one it is.
Right.
So, whatever way the chips fall. Yes, I think I don't intend to be a hurler in the ditch.
Right.
And I think I could, if things fell that way, I think I have I'd have the experience to get a good deal for West Cork.
Right. And if things do fall that way, and if you were elected, what would be on your wish list, the top 3 things we'll say that you'd love to see developed?
Well, I think for West Cork, I think it has been starved of infrastructure, finance, without a doubt. The N71 is just a classic example of that. That's one thing. I think our community hospitals, community care, and the hours that carers are getting is just not enough. And I think that our hospitals, our home helps, and our community hospitals, they're certainly very much well up on my priority. And I think they're talking about the broadband plan taking 7 years to roll out. I'd expect West Cork to be at the head of the rollout. Right.
Okay. And outside of politics now, what do you do to chill out and relax, or do you do anything? Can you ever get away from it?
You do. And sometimes politics can be chilling at times. Well, I enjoy sport. I love going to a match. Hurling would be a great passion of mine. I have a 7-year-old who keeps me busy. And there's a treehouse that's not finished, so when the election is over and the evenings get longer,
that's on his wish list.
Finishing that project would be one of them.
Okay.
So it's plenty to keep me going.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks very good,
and best of luck.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Southern Star Election 2020 podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star for all the latest election news, including interviews with candidates, analysis and comment. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world via www.southernstar.ie. The Southern Star, your go-to destination for election 2020.
Emma Connolly met up with the recently elected Munster chair of the IFA, Courtmacsherry farmer Harold Kingston, to see what the agricultural sector is hoping for after Saturday's election.
We are talking to the Irish Farmers Association Munster Regional Chair and Courtmacsherry farmer Harold Kingston. Welcome to our studio, Harold.
Thank you.
In a moment we'll be looking at the specifics of the IFA's election manifesto, what it is you're looking for in the upcoming election. But perhaps we might start by talking a little bit about the agricultural climate right now. How are things for farmers in West Cork?
Well, I suppose this time of the year we're always looking forward to spring, chilly mornings and so on, and days getting brighter. So as a farmer you're always optimistic. Of course, in the background you're always worried about, is the milk price going to rise as you expect it should do, because markets are stabilising.
Yes.
Beef, we hear about the situation in China with the pig meat and the African swine fever there, and by rights protein products should be increasing in price, and it hasn't really increased in price where it should be.
We see the strikes in Dublin all the time. So
yeah, well, that's a different story again, I suppose. But so look, the beef price needs to be rising just for the sustainability of the industry. We see everybody else getting paid, everybody else taking their margin, and unfortunately the farmer isn't getting the margin.
Brexit, of course, looming
is always there. Is always there, and we're looking now. Well, we know now for definite that the UK is definitely leaving on 31st of January. That's obviously first stage of a long process. We're then into transition periods where the fact that there's a deal being accepted means that there's not going to be a sudden cliff edge on the 31st of January, but there's an awful lot of talking, an awful lot of negotiation to be done. Whether it's going to be cliff edge at the 31st of December 2020 or whether it's going to be properly sorted, we still don't know.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on there. There is.
That's, as you said, outside of the time of the year, the workload, everything else.
Yeah.
So in your new role as with the IFA, you're obviously been quite involved in compiling the election manifesto. What is it that you're looking for and what is it that you want your members to be asking candidates when they come knocking on the door?
Well, the first thing that I'd tell every member is make sure that when somebody calls to your door, don't just say thanks very much and we'll see you in 5 years. Talk to them, because this is a perfect opportunity to find out what they want to do for us as farmers, but also what we need. I suppose for myself, in terms of timelines, the one that I'm most disappointed that hasn't happened in the outgoing government is the Fair Deal scheme, because we had done an awful lot of work on that as an organisation. It was getting to the point where it would have, if the government had lasted to where we thought it was going to go to next April or May, it would have been passed to that stage.
And what is it that you were looking for?
Well, there's issues to do with the fact that if the Fair Deal scheme is a fantastic idea whereby somebody going into a nursing home, the value of your house, there's 7.5% of it for 3 years used to fund your nursing home care, and after that then the state pays. The trouble with farms is that that's rated as commercial, so it's 7.5% per year until the farmer's gone, and that effectively takes the chance to work the farm from the next generation.
Okay.
So this was putting a timeline in place. It was putting the 3-year limit in place. We weren't saying we don't want to pay anything for it, but it just meant that there was some bit of structure put there, and it meant that the farm was secure for the next generation.
But that is a big worry for people at a certain
it's costing farm families money as of now, and the agreement was that it was to be backdated for the 3 years to allow for, so on.
You want that?
So that needs to be priority number one. Put that in train, get this sorted, because those families are in serious trouble right now because of this. So that's the first thing that we'll be looking for. The next one is, you mentioned Brexit. We got a beam one scheme, and I put in the number one on it because of the fact that there is a second stage.
Okay.
A lot of the reason for beef price being poor, it's a European problem. Ireland is part of that. We now see where there is a gap between ourselves and the UK, but up to quite recently that gap wasn't really there, and because of the fact that it was political market disturbance, and it was to do with the importing of other beef, poultry products and so on into Europe. It's a political decision had decided our beef price in Europe, and we as an exporting nation were harder hit than any other country in Europe. So we need actually to get that second beam scheme in place.
And is that on the table at the moment, or is
it is being looked at definitely on a European scale. The Irish government is looking for it, but they need to physically look for this properly and not just let it drift, because if it's left drift, it'll disappear.
Okay.
And there's farmers who since last 15th of May was when the last one cut off, and people were taking a hit from then until this past autumn again. So that needs to be put in place.
Beam 2. CAP, of course, the CAP negotiations are massive.
Look, I think, while in terms of Irish governments and budgets, there's limited, there's a certain amount involved in that, but certainly we need to know that whoever is going to be negotiating on our behalf in Europe has a strong CAP policy. It's a substantial amount of money coming into Ireland every year, but more than that is the rules and regulations governing it. It's making sure that money gets to people who are actually physically farming, as opposed to people who happen to own land. So it's about making sure that this is properly done. There is a new environmental as part of this as well. And again, we just need to make sure that this is something that's going to be possible to actually see results from an environmental point of view, and also to make sure that the people who are actually physically looking after the environment, i.e. the farmer, gets actually access to that money without too much red tape taking all the money out of it.
So I guess, speaking of the environment, I mean, rightly or wrongly, a lot of people point the fingers very squarely at farmers as being largely responsible for our climate problem. That's probably a discussion for another day. But in terms of climate,
2 hours later,
in terms of climate, are you looking for anything specifically?
Well, the interesting thing is that when you look at agriculture and climate from an Irish point of view, it is the only sector in Ireland that actually has a proper plan in place, accepted by government, part of the Climate Action Programme. Unfortunately, we're not seeing it properly funded or being enacted. So that is one of the big things I'd be looking at.
Okay.
You know, people talk about
what might you be
Well, I
looking
suppose
for?
one of the main ones would be the renewable sector, because you know, whether it's windmills, solar farms, growing biomass, whatever, anaerobic digesters, you need land for all of that. Farmers have the land for that. In some cases, they're you know, the current enterprise mightn't be making an awful lot of money. This is a viable opportunity. It's also going to actually stop us having to import fossil fuels into the country, which is the primary driver of climate change, is the use of fossil fuels in the last 150 years. So farmers actually have a solution here. Unfortunately, unless the market is actually there, people who originally planted miscanthus lost their shirts over it when that scheme was originally introduced to produce biomass. We now need to see a situation where, instead of just simply a big company coming in, planting a windmill in the middle of the farm and paying rent, that the farmer can actually get in and as part of it.
Have a scheme that the farmer can sell into
the grid, whether that's
or
to do with solar on top of our the roofs inside the yard. You know, it doesn't
Which
have
is being
to be
encouraged, isn't it?
It's being encouraged in a lot of cases, but unfortunately, it doesn't pay properly.
To either install or to
financially over the period of the time that you own the equipment, unless you use all the power yourself, you can't sell back into the grids. You know, there's so many different things there.
Are you hearing positive feedback on that, or are people listening to what you're saying?
They're listening, but I'm not sure they're actually hearing exactly what we need.
So you want your members to keep delivering the message?
We need to actually see movement on this, because we can deliver on this. You know, whether it's to do with, you know, there's lots of things we can do on the farm side in terms of looking at our soil structure, you know, looking at all different things, efficiencies of our animals and that.
And farmers by and large are on board with all of that.
Oh, very much, very much. Like we're you know, if you actually look at the whole carbon cycle and so on, you know, people are now realising the value of carbon storage in our soils, the value of what land can do to tackle climate. Farmers have always been, you know, that's part of the natural carbon cycle. You know, if you grow crops or keep animals, there is always going to be emissions, but the soil takes it back in to grow the next part of the crop. So that natural cycle has always been there. Through new research, we can actually enhance that, and certainly the renewable side, we can certainly.
That's where you can really make some contributions.
Make big contributions there, definitely.
Very good.
Yeah.
I suppose, how do your members feel the outgoing government have performed? How would they rate? How would they rate the outgoing government? And I suppose specifically the Agriculture Minister, who's a candidate in a constituency not too far from here, Cork Northwest.
I passed some of his posters earlier today as
well.
Look, I suppose personally, I love elections. Okay, I'm a floating voter. I'm not a member of any party, so I actually love the whole process. I know I went a tough election myself to get into the IFA position, but came right down to the wire and recounts and everything. So I love the whole process. In terms of the most thing and successive governments, what I've noticed is there's loads of promises, loads of things happening. But similar to the Fair Deal, the timelines are too long, and in a lot of cases the bureaucracy takes over. And I think ministers, you know, need to take charge of their job. You know, the officials are there, make use of them, drive them on. Okay. And if you actually you know, decide take your portfolio and run with it properly, then I think there's an awful lot can be delivered by putting in timelines and by driving the thing on, rather than just,
Is that a roundabout way of saying you'd like to see more results?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
More results.
Yeah. I was
less talking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, like an awful lot of what we do is in terms of you need a tough negotiator on the European side and so on. But I think, the minister needs to take charge, and whatever minister is in charge, they need to, everybody's going to bring their own particular slants to it. I don't know whether the current minister is going to get elected. I don't know, is the current minister going to be the new Minister for Agriculture? Yeah. We haven't a clue what we're facing into. Yeah. It could be a completely different party in charge. Who knows? But whoever it is, they need to actually take charge of this and drive it on themselves, and not sit back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess bottom line, if you're a farmer in West Cork, be plucky, be optimistic.
But
get your message across to the guys when they come knocking on your door.
And definitely vote, because that is critical. Farmers are generally speaking one of the highest turnouts of the demographic of people to actually go out and vote, because we're generally more involved and more exercised by the whole process. But it's a case, make sure you get out and vote, and make sure you quiz these people properly.
We actually, of course, we should mention we have a dairy farmer running in our constituency, Senator Tim Lombard, so he should be there's a number of people with farming backgrounds and so on. I won't start naming them, because if I start naming them, I'll miss one, of course, obviously. But look, everybody knows that how important agriculture is to Cork South West in particular, which is my own constituency. You look at the Carberry situation, where we generally we have a very high stocking rate of animals and livestock in West Cork, because that's what we're best suited to. Of course.
You see the fact that 2/3 of the Carberry suppliers are in derogation. That type of intensity, that level of involvement of agriculture in the entire economy of West Cork. I think any politician, whether they're from a dairy background or from a teaching background or whatever background, they need to listen to the farmers, and because it's a big part of what they'll be involved in.
That's a good point.
It's the whole economy of West Cork. You look at the Taste of West Cork Food Festival, all these things, without actually having farmers to produce food, you're not going to have that in the first place.
Listen to the farmers.
Absolutely.
And it's all to play for.
Yeah.
Harold, thanks. We'll talk again post-election, but that was very interesting. Thanks for coming in to join us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Southern Star Election 2020 podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star for all the latest election news, including interviews with candidates, analysis and comment. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world via www.southernstar.ie. The Southern Star, your go-to destination for election 2020.
Reporter Jackie Keogh took to the streets of Bantry recently to talk to voters about their views on the upcoming election.
Mary McCarthy, you're out shopping here in Bantry today. Can you tell me, what do you think is the important election issues in Bantry?
For Bantry, the most important at the moment probably would be any cutting of services at Bantry General Hospital. That would be the main concern.
Okay, and how do you think Bantry is faring?
I think Bantry is doing pretty well. We've good representatives here who have an interest in the people and in the people of the town, also the surrounding areas, particularly in the rural communities.
Very good. And would you say who you'd be voting for?
I wouldn't be prepared to say yet. I haven't quite decided. I'll keep that one under my cap for the moment.
But you're satisfied? Okay.
I am, yes,
Great.
Yes.
Thank you for talking to me. Danny Smith, you're a local artist and a postman, and I've interrupted you on your rounds to ask you a few questions.
No problem.
What are the election issues in Bantry?
I said the main one for me would be rural Ireland. I think it's disgraced the way the government is treating it,
Okay.
And think
What
the
specifically?
politicians in Dublin seem to think everything stops at Dublin, but there's more to that. It's sad they're seeing places closed down, and pubs and restaurants, and even the tax on the food now that's gone back up to 30. It's ridiculous, like. You know, all these small little shops, even in Bantry, you know, small shops, restaurants, they also employ people, they employ them. You know, the people in college and they come back for the weekend and gives them jobs, and most places are kind of closing, like, because they can't keep between insurance
Okay.
and the taxes and all that. You know.
Yes, the insurance certainly is an issue. Will you be saying these things to local politicians when they come around?
I definitely will, yeah. You know, even health and hospitals and that is, like the Children's Hospital in Dublin, I know it is very important, like, but what they overspent on it is ridiculous. Like, you know, if there was any other business, there'd be people sacked over it, but it's the same circle of cronyism, you know.
Are you concerned about the hospital here in Bantry?
Oh, I'm very concerned, yeah. You know, it's great for the Bantry and local area, and Castletownbere, Allies, Iries. But now Bantry is like, geez, they have to travel miles, like.
Okay,
you know.
There has been a lot of investment in Bantry in recent years.
Oh, they have, yeah. But in fairness, like, Bantry's is coming up leaps and bounds, you know, and even there's a fierce community spirit here. You know, even the shops and locals and that, like. But we're still, you know, we still could do with more, like.
Okay.
You know.
And do you have any political leanings, Danny? Are you voting for any one person in particular?
I keep that a secret.
All right, Danny, thank you for talking to me.
Thanks, Jackie.
Sarah Harrington, what are the election issues here in Bantry?
Well, I think recently you're probably aware of Bantry Hospital is our biggest issue here now at the moment. You know, I think anybody you speak to will tell you how important it is to us. Not just us, people far and wide.
Okay.
Without Bantry Hospital, we're just another number on a trolley in CUH, which is already full to combustion, you know.
Okay. And can you tell me, are there any other issues around the town that you think deserve attention?
Roads.
Okay.
As always, I think most towns will say it, but yeah, especially our roads, you know, coming into Bantry and leaving Bantry, it's very important, you know.
And do you think you're well represented in Bantry politically?
I think Michael Collins really stands out. He really does listen, and he, you know, he's a normal Joe Soap. He's not somebody that's living in Dublin in their own Dublin bubble. You know, he sees for himself what all these things means to us.
Okay, so I'm guessing you're voting for him.
Absolutely, yeah. Michael Collins #1, yeah.
All right then, thank you for talking to me.
You're very welcome.
What are your politics coming into this election?
I've maintained that, to be honest with you, but I'm also a firm believer in individuals who've proven themselves in the past, work-wise. I'd certainly consider any party if the people are delivering locally. I know that when you run for election in the Dáil, it's supposed to be more of a national thing, but the reality of it is really, at the end of the day, local people are voting for locals to deliver. So
who's delivering?
Michael Collins certainly has been up there. I mean, anybody living locally can see that he's doing a lot of work on the ground. I don't agree with one or two things that he has been done in relation to the 8th. I was kind of, well, not surprised, but I mean, at the same time, I think overall he's really a really community-based person at the moment who really need that down here.
All right, so that's translating as a vote for you.
I'm considering everybody, but yeah, I would certainly be considering Michael as a vote, yeah.
All right, so what's right with Bantry and what's wrong with Bantry?
What's right with Bantry? I suppose Bantry in the last number of years, I suppose you probably may be aware of the project group that was started about 2 years ago. Myself and Siobhan Cronin and the Business Association got Deirdre Fitzgerald to chair a combined committee of all the different groups in town, and since that has happened, there's been a really good cohesion. So a lot of different projects have taken off as a result, which is fantastic. And that's the town finally working together. There has been a few difficulties in the past with that happening, and that's coming together now. And as a result of that, other bodies outside of the town, such as the county council, I suppose, and any other group like that, they can see that the town is working hard to develop. So it's quite positive that way.
And what's not right with Bantry?
Bantry's fantastic. We've a long way
what
to
do
go.
you need? What's your shopping list?
Well, our shopping, we need it. I mean, I'm in the restaurant business, but we need more, and I'm glad to see that O'Connor's restaurant has been taken on by, I haven't met the guy yet. It's a decent sized restaurant at this time of the year, off season. It's good for business for the rest of us, but during the summertime, if Bantry wants to develop and become a bit more of a destination, we have to provide good food all year round, really. And there's room for a few more restaurants in town as far as I'm concerned. I think that we really need to focus on developing one of our biggest assets, which is the harbour, and that's kind of ongoing at the moment with the Port of Cork and Cork County Council and the Bantry Marine Community Group, who are in the process of developing a marine centre in the Abbey area. So hopefully that will all come to fruition in the next number of years. It's a slow burner, but
Yeah. Actually, Dermot, it was remiss of me at the start not to say that you're chairman of
the Bantry Business Association.
and
Bantry
you're working
Business Association.
in close association on all these projects.
Yes.
Very
would
good.
be, yeah.
Now, before I switch off, anything else you want to add?
I suppose the biggest thing at the moment is going into this election, and I don't know if it's going to make a difference if we lobby the current TDs, because we don't know who'll be sitting there after the 8th of February. But Bantry Hospital is the biggest issue at the moment in Bantry, as far as I'm concerned. It's a community hospital. It's a general hospital. It's been the backbone of the town for a number of generations now, and any moves by the HSE to downgrade it or do anything will be met with a lot of opposition, and I firmly believe that the people that in the HSE are responsible for this should look beyond their accountants and realise the value of this hospital in the area as a backbone of the community.
Okay.
As the fabric of the rural lifestyle. Minister Ring should be down here and to see what this offers the town, as he's involved in he's the minister that deals with rural affairs, and also Simon Harris. Again, do we talk to these guys, or do we talk to the likes of Jerry O'Dwyer and the HSE? Whoever it be, they need to know that it's more than a financial issue, a cost issue around the hospital. This is beyond. You couldn't describe how valuable this is in more ways than one to the whole area of West Cork and South Kerry as well.
That's great. Thank you, Dermot. Trish Messon, you're the owner of a busy business here in Bantry, but can you tell us what are the election issues facing the town?
I think Bantry Hospital, rural transport, getting people in and out. I think the local community are very good. You know, we get together. We had the Save the Kelp campaign. I think the community getting together is just fighting different issues.
Okay, and are you saying that you don't have any faith in the politicians, or do you think they're doing their bit?
Yes and no. I think it's local politics, so they can't drive the big issues. But they can start the change, I suppose, really.
Okay,
you know.
So they do have influence, is what you're saying?
Yes, a little bit, yes.
Okay, and Tricia, are you likely to indicate what your political preference would be?
I think I might go Social Democrats, maybe. Okay. Holly.
Very good.
I haven't decided, or Denny, or Noel Collins, Denny's brother.
Michael Collins.
Michael Collins.
Yes,
oh my God.
no problem, that's fine.
Sorry, Michael.
Yes, it's early in the day. And can I ask you as well, Trish, there has been a lot of investment in Bantry. Do you think the town is thriving?
Yeah, it's beginning to. I can see it, you know, there's a bit of development. There's, you know, the walkways in a bad way, and that's being developed now again. It's been closed off for a couple of weeks, so they're redoing it because it's been sinking with the few storms we've had. And yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, it's a pretty town.
It is a pretty town, and just on that, the town has won Best Kept Town in Ireland. Do you think that has engendered greater civic pride?
Sorry?
Do you think that has engendered greater civic pride?
It has, definitely, yeah. I think we're all aware the No Poster campaign is really driving it now, and, you know, none of us want to see rubbish around.
Lovely.
You know.
Any last thoughts, Trish?
No.
Thanks for listening to the Southern Star Election 2020 podcast. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Acast, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.